Super excited tonight to have another special guest. We're joined by Ryan Matta. Ryan, how you doing tonight?
I'm super excited, man. I couldn't be more excited to be here with you gentlemen. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. John, you doing all right?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to have Ryan here on the show. Ryan just did a new documentary, and there's a lot to talk about here. So this is going to
Yeah.
be one heck of a show. I'm excited.
Yeah, Ryan, your documentary, I just actually got it today on Rumble. I really do recommend that people follow Ryan at Ryan Matta Media on X. And you know what? I had never done this before on Rumble, but Ryan's got a really big Rumble channel here with lots of videos on it. And you've got this new movie here, What is Treason? Hashtag trafficked. And it's, this is really great. Before we get into the content of the film, I just want to talk about what you've done here because, 10 or 15 years ago when I was in Hollywood, I got involved in a lot of documentaries kind of like this, but not like this, because what somebody would have said 10 or 15 years ago, Ryan, is, oh, you can't make this movie because this is like a third rail topic here and nobody's going to want to finance it. Even if you did break through that barrier and get somebody to finance the thing, get 100,000, you'd never be able to do it. Nobody would put up that kind of money. But, let's say you did, then you'd run into the problem, oh, nobody wants to distribute this because it's so controversial. And so what you've done now is you've just made this. This is an important subject. We're going to talk about some of the clips there, but this is an excellent documentary that you've put together about the abuse of nonprofit NGOs and how they've enabled the largest human trafficking network in history. And you've been able to go direct to viewers. People can buy this movie for $9.99 right there on Rumble. Can you talk to us a little bit about how this project came together first, just from a business and a filmmaking standpoint, and then get into some of the details of what you guys have uncovered? It's an incredible documentary. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you, man. And I couldn't agree with everything more than what you said there. You're spot on. It came from being demonetized and deplatformed from every single other platform and really getting to a point where, it's a lot of money, like this just for the editing. And I haven't got the full bill yet because we have two documentaries. So the next one, part two, will be releasing on October 24th. But you're looking at 25 to 50,000 just in the editing costs. And you have an employee or an editor that's literally working 12 to 16 hours a day for 30 days straight, nonstop, just trying to get this thing completed and dialed in. I mean, you know how it is when you're editing, you can spend literally a 12-hour day and edit and complete 2 minutes of a film. 2 minutes. That's it. That's how much tweaking and work and modification. So a lot of work went into it, but it started 4 months ago, maybe 5 months ago now. With when I met my partner, JJ Carroll. I was watching him. Some gentlemen brought him on their podcast, kind of like this, how you guys are bringing me on. And they brought on one of my buddy, George, to actually do the questioning of JJ. And then I watched that interview. And for the first time, I'm hearing a man that is, from an authority standpoint, Border Patrol, 24 years. He lived it. He was at that border, boots on the ground. And for the first time, I'm hearing somebody else call it treason. And I went down to that border. I was going down there for about 2 years. And I'd actually been working on this story for about 2 years. And when I first broke it, I thought that I was new to journalism, new to, I guess you call it investigative journalism. I thought I was coming back with like a Pulitzer prize. I was like, when I come back and tell people that I got drone footage of these child migrant concentration camps, and there's 2,000, 600, 400, 200, 100. These are all the amount of children that are inside these facilities and within 15 minutes of the Brownsville airport. I'm like, when America hears this, it's on. It's done for these NGOs. There's going to be protests. There's going to be outrage. And it was like a fart in church. It made a little bit of a disruption for a few seconds, and then it was nothing, absolutely nothing. And then when you try to tell, like after you've seen the documentary, like you understand because you have to put it all together and you have to see it. If you just hear Carlos or you just hear Deb or you just hear Aaron or you just hear Baz, like their stories are hard to take in and comprehend anyways. But it's not until you put all the pieces together that you really see this machine, which is our government. And our government has turned ORR, which is Office of Refugee Resettlement, into the child trafficking arm of the United States government. And HHS has turned into the human trafficking arm of the United States government. And today, well, it's actually about 3 weeks ago, our government openly admitted to losing 325,000 unaccompanied alien children. So I'll land it there. I could go on and on for hours, but I want to let you guys jump in here. But that's kind of how it got started, and here we are.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's an important subject, and it's absolutely crazy what you guys lay out for people who haven't seen it. And just to give kind of a 50,000-foot view, the people that you're talking about, you actually interviewed certain whistleblowers, people who, went to work for these NGOs thinking they were doing a good thing, reconnecting these children with their families. You guys interviewed firsthand people who left when they realized they were just dropping kids off at criminals' houses. And it's amazing because I think you and I connected when that video of mine at the Walcott Hotel got a lot of attention, because this is exactly what you're talking about. These weird guys handling little babies that are just like obviously not theirs. What is going on?
It's absolute insanity. You can't make it up. And even when you tell people, like if you were to meet somebody, you're in a podcast and you just happen to bring up that story and you're like, I filmed it. This is what I filmed. These guys are outside this hotel. They were handing off a baby. I called the cops and tried to report child trafficking. And the cops go, we're on our way. And then started mocking me and going, woo, 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 laughing at you. Like
it sounds too ridiculous to be true, right?
Right. It's like we live in some, I don't know what we live in, man. If you told me that this was a simulation, I probably wouldn't argue with you at this point, because it is so bizarre what we're watching here. Just to think about that. 4 years ago, could you imagine that somebody would have said, hey, in 4 years, the United States government is going to be running a child trafficking network, and they're going to have about 500,000 children.
I mean, it's difficult to believe it is. So, I mean, I really do encourage people who are watching, if you haven't seen Ryan before, or if you have, you got to get over to his Rumble channel. And it was super easy to purchase the film, even if you're, not subscribed to Ryan or anything like that. You just put your credit card right in there. So much easier than going to the movies. So I really admired that too, just from the standpoint of an independent filmmaker and somebody who's been, like I said, this is third rail stuff. So, it is difficult, I think, for some people to watch this kind of thing and even engage with this kind of material, because it's just so objectionable what these people are doing and what's being described. But it's an important film, and the way you've been able to put it together to leverage technology and the internet and everything, it's very similar to what John and I do with our sponsor exclusive shows. People want this kind of material. We don't need some, Netflix or some studio standing in between this content, and people who want to see it. By going direct to viewers, people can see, this is First Amendment right here. It doesn't matter what some studio thinks. It matters what needs to get out there. Now, the thing that you've revealed is that they're covering up so much here. It's similar to what we're seeing. John, when he and I first started working together, he was one of these people who was very entrenched in mainstream information. And that's part of the problem, isn't it? People who are just getting their news. This seems so ridiculous because they, up until a few months ago, P. Diddy was like a Nobel laureate practically. So it's very shocking. How do you see this kind of cognitive dissonance tying into what we're discovering with the assassination attempts against Donald Trump?
That's a great question. And I think you guys are spot on. I think it's all connected. I absolutely know it's all connected. And that's kind of was the overall thesis of this documentary is everybody asks how is this continuing to happen? Why is this being allowed to happen? Well, what we've uncovered is that this is coming from the highest military intelligence that we have, from somebody, some people respect, some people don't respect him. But General Flynn told us in an interview that he knows for a fact that the members of Congress are traveling overseas to have sex with underage children. And let me rephrase that. They are traveling overseas to rape minor children, because you don't have sex with a minor. You rape a minor. So I want to be very clear on that point right there. And then the more that you dig and you see how Diddy did it, you see how Epstein did it, Bill Clinton was delivering underage children, boys and girls, to the White House, to the President of the United States. So let that sink in. And not one person on Epstein's client list has been arrested. Maybe they have, sorry. Diddy might be on that list. So maybe they did finally arrest one person on the Epstein client list, but I won't hold my breath for the rest. So we have this giant pedophile network that is intertwined into every level of our government, all the way from local sheriffs all the way up to the highest echelons of Washington, D.C. And if we have, and how does this connect to the Trump assassination? Because the only way you're going to let people on the inside and into the know on something like an assassination is if you have something so damning on them that you know that they would rather die than it be exposed. Meaning this giant pedophile network, it's the last taboo. We've seen Hoover use gays to control and dominate the FBI for 50 years almost. He was the director of the FBI through how many presidential administrations? Probably.
We got to be careful what we get into here on YouTube. We're crossing over into the territory of the type of stuff we're going to talk about.
YouTube,
that's okay.
Guys. My bad.
That's fine.
I thought you guys were.
Don't worry about it. We're going to get into that sort of more controversial stuff on the sponsor exclusive segment right after this. People are going to be able to join us on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, or subscribestar.com. And patreon.com/crowdsource the truth, and Odyssey and all that, kind of a little bit thrown off there. It's crazy that we live in this world where we have to worry about that kind of stuff. But I mean, listen, what you're talking about is well documented stuff. This is the LA Times back in 1989 talking about agents scour the White House guard's home. A figure in a male prostitution ring was linked to late night tours. And this was also written about in the Washington Times, male prostitutes in the White House. It just gets glossed over. This was the Boys Town. What was that guy? Lawrence King, the whole, you know what I'm talking about.
That was Boys Town.
Franklin,
you're right.
The Franklin incident.
Yes. And then, well, we can't talk about it now, but I would throw a few more at you too, as well, that I think are going to come to light.
Diddy, you've brought them up. But the point is the assassination, John, we've been hearing crazy things from people who say, oh, Trump set this up. But you have brought forward this ballistic evidence that, I mean, who could possibly set this up and stand there in the line of fire? It seems impossible. What I'm getting at is Ryan's research sort of merges with this concept of these Trump assassinations, because Trump is talking about exposing all of this, right? I mean, Trump is the one who kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. They're trying to kill him.
Well, let's talk about treason. Treason. So treason in the world that Ryan's been exploring here and documenting, you look at the oath that these people take, and the oath is to protect the Constitution, or defend the Constitution against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. And it seems that they're skipping that domestic part. Everybody seems to be skipping over the domestic enemies part. And it seems that what Ryan has rooted out and documented is maybe there's some domestic enemies. Maybe there's some people who are within the government, who are within NGOs getting paid by the government, wherever they may be, that this is who they're talking about in the oath. Enemies, both foreign and domestic. So again, I'm a root cause analysis guy, and the whole, like Jason said, the whole thing with the kids and all that, for me, as kind of a plain vanilla guy that's not really into so much of the the alternate news stuff, I never understood why. I never understood what are they doing with all the kids? Where are the kids going? And then what happens to the kids? And there seems to be so many of them, and I don't see like packs of kids I don't see Lord of the Flies kind of thing. I don't see 10-year-olds were wandering around in the streets together that used to be part of a sex ring. So what's happening to these kids? It's like, I'm a pretty old guy. I've been around the block a couple times. I've lived in New York. I've lived in LA. I've never seen any kids anywhere, in anything, anywhere. So I don't get where is this underground of child sex stuff? It's like nobody I know has ever
I
like
think it's
anything like
hard
that. So,
for regular people to wrap their
right.
brains around it. But you know what was one thing that really struck me about Ryan's movie is that it really focused on the NGO aspect of it. And the reason why this struck me, obviously everything they're doing with kids is totally sick, but this is another through line in things that we've been researching really for 8 years here on Crowdsource the Truth. And it's the abuse of these nonprofits. This has become the preferred method for these really sophisticated organized crime rings, and whether it's child trafficking or lawfare or whatever they're doing with these tax exempt funds. Let's take this Eric Adams example. You know, he is saying, "Oh, I'm going to run for mayor, and New York City is going to be a sanctuary city." So all these progressive weirdo lefties in New York are like, "Oh, that sounds cool. Yeah, let's vote for that." But really, all Eric Adams cares about is diverting federal funds to New York City so that various NGOs that he's sent city money to can go and hire all kinds of services from companies that are owned by friends of Eric Adams, catering to these hotels, cleaning services, security services. That's how these things work. And what is identified in Ryan's movie is that there's people with premium bus companies with brand new Mercedes buses, you know, all these hotel cleaning companies. This is an entire multi-billion-dollar industry that's stealing money through these NGOs.
But what happens to the kids, though? So
They
where
kill
are the
them,
kids?
rape them, kill them,
Ki-
put them out as prostitutes. And Ryan, what happens to the kids? We don't really know.
So
They get
if we
lost.
take a look at all of the NGOs that are currently housing children right now, we know that as of, well, I can give you the exact numbers as of like June 1st, it was 438,573. So that was the amount of unaccompanied alien children that have came across that border that our government has taken custody of. So when a child comes across the border, what's happening right now? When you talk about human and child trafficking, the most dangerous parts of the journey for the trafficker himself are bringing the merchandise across the border. That's the second most dangerous. And then the first most dangerous is delivering that merchandise to a buyer in America. So what we're seeing now is because of the way that this system is created, a cartel member now only needs to get a child to the border wall and literally drop him over the border wall. So if your audience is watching this, or you can do it right here, go onto YouTube and just search cartel drops child over border wall. And I guarantee you, and I've been saying this a lot in a lot of interviews, so maybe they buried it. It might take you to like page 2. But what you'll see is it looks like a cartel as at a frat party, and you're trying to drop a beer down to your buddy on the lower balcony, and you lean over, you let your hand drop down. Bingo, right there. You can't make it up, man. They literally just lean them over and then just watch this kid. I bet he drops him. I would find it hard to believe if he actually goes all the way down with the child. I bet he just lowers him down and then just drops him.
Wow. Whoa.
Yep. Those are 4-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds.
We're just laying there.
Yeah. Because you know why? Because Border Patrol is working for the cartels, and they may not be getting paid directly for those for the
He's
cartels.
gonna drop another one.
But all they have to do now is bring the child over to the border wall. Now, what else is going to happen now within a few minutes, because they're bringing them to very specific locations at that wall, right?
Huh.
They're bringing them where they have night vision, where this is obviously a CCT or CTT, whatever footage.
Right.
And then from here, Border Patrol is going to show up there within probably 5 to 10 minutes. Very rarely do they make it to a port, or the kid will actually go in the wrong direction. Is the only time you really see the kids wandering around at the border. Border Patrol is normally there within 5 or 10 minutes. So now what happens is this child has a phone number stapled to his shirt. Phone number, address, and a name. And this is going to be quote unquote the sponsor, right? They're trying to tell you, Americans, that child who was just dropped over an 18-foot border wall by a cartel, that cartel made sure to put the proper his relative's number, his relative's address, and his name, because the cartels are just such good guys.
Right.
They would never let that kid get to the border wall without it. But what happens then is Border Patrol picks up the child and processes them. When Border Patrol is checking in the child, the Border Patrol agent is going to take that information that's on that name tag or on that piece of paper that's in the kid's pocket, and he's going to put it into their system. From there, the only role that Border Patrol plays right there is to actually process the child in and then order the delivery of the child to HHS intake facility. So they're not supposed to determine if the child's been an R word or not, or he's been assaulted or any damage has happened to him. They're just making sure he doesn't need any immediate medical attention, get him some food, some clean clothes, and then that child's just waiting at Border Patrol until they get delivered to HHS. Now, once they get to the HHS intake facility, this is where they do a 2 to 14 day initial intake screening process. Now, this is where they ask the kid a bunch of digging deeper questions. HHS is supposed to figure out, who does the kid have a relative? Does he know the relative? Does he have a relative that's waiting for him? Has he been assaulted or hurt, or does he owe the cartel money? So they do what are called digging deeper questions. So when they do that intake, that initial intake, they're asking them, do you owe cartels money? How did you get here? All these questions. They're trying to determine if this kid's being trafficked or not. If the kid has been assaulted sexually,
it's almost always yes, isn't it? They have to,
always.
they have to kind of dig it out. Right.
Yep. 80% of these children have been sexually assaulted or raped. And a lot of them won't tell you that, right? Because I could go into deeper detail, but let me just wrap this one up. So they bring, so now once they're doing that intake process, right? HHS goes, oh, cool. We got a name and number in this file attached to this kid. This is his sponsor. So they call that person. They go, hey, are you guys, John, are you expecting a child? You're like, yeah. And you go, is it Jimmy and he's 5? You're like, yeah, it's Jimmy, he's 5. Oh, all right. Is this the address where you're going to be living at with a child? Yep, that's the address. This is your phone number. Okay, cool. Well, we're going to need you to go ahead and fill out this application. This is an FRA application. And they send you a link. You fill out the FRA application. They're supposed to do a background check, right? Well, how they're doing these background checks is it's an 18-year-old, a 21-year-old, a 22-year-old high school dropout with a GED who just got hired last week. And their job is to go on Google Earth and take a look at the address that you provided and determine if that looks like a safe place for a child.
What?
And let me remind you, in James O'Keefe's documentary that just came out, Line in the Sand, he just got internal documents that show that these addresses, and our government was a lot ordering the delivery of a child to a strip club. So a gentleman applied for a child, and the only address he had was a strip club for some reason. And that passed the background check, and a child was actually delivered, not to the strip club, but he was delivered to an adult at baggage claim at the airport. And that adult was going back supposedly to that strip club. So this is how bizarre it is. So, and then what happens too is if, say the kid the number fell off, right? Fell off the kid's shirt, and it didn't get inputted into the system. Sorry, not if it didn't get put into the system, but if HHS doesn't call you, right, you can then go on to ORR's website and you can fill out the FRA application. And when that FRA application pings and matches in the system, it's going to alert them and say, hey, we have quote unquote a sponsor for Johnny. And then they'll call and they'll coordinate the delivery of that child. Now, in the meantime, because a lot of these kids are coming over without a phone number stapled to their shirt, or some of them show up and they don't have that buyer information on their shirt. Then they are getting sent to an NGO facility. And these are the long-term care facilities that you were talking about in the beginning, where there was the Walmart, right? You could go to a Walmart and there was 2,000 boys in an old Walmart that they converted into one of these child camps. And they can stay in there anywhere from a couple weeks or up to years. Some of them even stay there till they're 18 and then they age out. And then what happens at 18? Oh, they get a full ride scholarship to Columbia University, bought and paid for with your tax dollars. And that's why, 50% of the students at Columbia University were what? Oh, they're foreign nationalist children. They're not natural born American citizens.
So are these centers for the kids? Are they all over the country? Like, are these in Colorado and Kansas and Ohio and all over the place?
Where was the drone footage
all in
that you
Texas?
got?
Are they all in Texas?
602 total all across America that we know about. Well, I would say 400 I can guarantee are open today because some closed, some more open up. But the latest number I heard was upwards of 600, but I could say 400 very, very confident.
Where was the drone footage that you got of the big camp?
Right there. Yep, this is it right here.
I mean, this is amazing. So this is where, can you say what state this was located in?
That's in Texas. That's in Carrizo Springs. So that's a facility that was getting ready. I believe it opened right under Trump. And it was probably 1/10 of this size when it opened under Trump. And because Trump's policies were so good at preventing unaccompanied children from arriving at the border, the facility was getting ready to close. They were going to file bankruptcy because they didn't have enough children. There was just no work for them, right? And Trump's policies about separating the children, which is why you might need a facility like this is when the child
Right.
gets separated from the parent and
And
it's
figure
not,
out that they're being trafficked, right?
they're being trafficked. You need a place they can stay safely, because our government can, Trump's rules where he had a 72-hour policy. So a child could never be separated from a child or from his parent for more than 72 hours, which is why he had the instant DNA testing, which was done, which can be done in as little as 45 minutes. I've even heard as quick as 10 minutes now. But even if
Wow.
it's 45 minutes, who cares? Because when Trump first implemented that, the first round of DNA testing that they did, 40% were not their parent. And then Biden comes in and day one, 93 executive orders. So to answer your question, John, to follow it back up, where are the children right now in these camps all across America? I would say estimates are around 100,000 children. So today, if Trump came back and said, go get as many children as you can right now, we could kick down every one of these doors, raid all these facilities, and probably find roughly 100,000 of that 438,573. Now, where are the 325,000 that they've lost, you're asking? That's a great question, because the only follow-up that is done after a child is delivered to a vetted sponsor. This is somebody that HHS vetted and said, yes, we give you the green light, reauthorize you to deliver a child to this grown adult. We're talking about a 13-year-old Asian female getting kicking and screaming, getting basically ripped out of a car by a 49-year-old Mexican man. And as she's kicking and screaming, she's going, that's not my uncle. I don't know this man. I want to go back to the facility. And these facilities,
Wow.
these NGOs are telling their delivery people, under no circumstances do you bring a child back, ever, ever. Carlos said there was one time where it was so egregious that he couldn't do it, and they still didn't take her back to the facility. They just took her to another NGO, one of their other locations, and they dropped her off there. And I would bet you any money that they had another escort come in and pick up that girl and take her exactly where she was supposed to go originally.
It's unbelievable. And, Trump is openly saying he wants to put an end to this. So obviously, we look at means, motive, and opportunity. And John, we're at the end here, but we're going to be talking about the sniper's testimony. Why don't you give everybody a little lead into what we're going to talk about on subscribestar.com/I am John Cullen, patreon.com/I am John Cullen, odyssey.com/@crowdsourced the truth, and all these other channels when we come back on the sponsor exclusive segment.
Well, the common thread here seems to be treason. And it seems to be that the government has jumped the shark and is out of control. Their tactics, their methods, we're just so far from what the Constitution allowed for, right? So whether you're talking about the FBI and the existence of a federal police force that's not accounted for in the Constitution, or a personal income tax on your income, that's not in the Constitution. So these are things that were relegated to the states, and we're getting to, back then these founding fathers had an eye towards this federalist movement, the idea of centralizing power, back then in Philadelphia, now thank God not Philadelphia and Washington, but they're both hellholes, right? If you go down to Philly or Washington, it's like, man, kind of the two worst, wow,
Yeah,
really
not
bad
that
show.
good.
It's like, man, Kensington Gardens and Philly has
Pittsburgh,
turned,
not that good either.
all right, well, so the net of it is these guys saw this coming. And that's why they structured stuff the way they structured it, was exactly to try and prevent it. But it's been a slow drip, drip, drip for 250 years. And it's a slippery slope. And so, they take away a little freedom, they take away a little more. Patriot Act is still, still out there 23 years later, as if we really need that now. Where's Chertoff? Where's he, on the beach in Switzerland, in Geneva? What's he doing? Where is he?
He wrote
Let's
the
get
rally,
him on the show.
the rally
Why don't you
shooter
invite him
thing,
on the show? I got some
according to
questions for him.
George Webb.
Yeah, so the idea here is treason. And when you start seeing people in the government committing treason, and you start to accumulate evidence of it, the question then is, well, what's the next step? So Ryan's been accumulating evidence of this type of treason at the border with children, trafficking children, and the government complicity in it. We've been documenting treasonous behavior whether it's within the Secret Service, the FBI, whoever it is that's not investigating this thoroughly to the extent that we're the ones coming up with all these breaks. So you look at the assassination attempt on Trump, and is it treasonous to not be pursuing these leads? So, for example, to me, it's misprision of felony. We've talked about misprision of felony. When you've got people who are in public office who aren't pursuing the evidence that Ryan's bringing forward about the trafficking, that we're bringing forward, whether it's about the assassination attempt, whether it's about COVID, whatever it may be, whatever these mega crimes are, what do we do? The First Amendment talks about we have the right to redress the government, right? We want to voice, right? If we've got an issue, we have this part of the First Amendment is to redress our grievances. But Nancy Pelosi didn't build a website for that. There is no app called Address Your Grievances.
They should make that.
And therefore, well, they really should. And therefore, Jacob Chansley puts on his helmet, grabs his staff, and says, damn it, let's get down there then, and let's talk to Nancy. There is no mechanism to address it. And the challenge now is we've risen to high crimes, not misdemeanors. Misdemeanors, misdemeanors are yesterday's news. We're at high crimes. They're trafficking children, and kids are getting raped and killed.
It's shocking. Yeah.
And all this crazy stuff. And it's their numbers that you're citing. You're citing their statistics that they're sharing with us. I mean, we're not making up the numbers. You're just sharing their numbers. The 300,000, that we just got that number from them this week.
Yep.
So the frustration is, what do we do when we catch these guys doing this stuff? What do we do when we catch Joe Lombardo forging a crime scene and creating evidence and covering up the worst shooting in American history? What do we do? How do we proceed?
We're doing it though, aren't we? Right here.
Well, we're kind of I feel like we're cutting bait. So we've got bait fish. Our bait locker is full. We got a bait well full of great bait. It's the part where we've got to get the action to happen. And the problem is, Congress, has anything ever come out of any congressional anything with teeth?
Well,
like I remember
sometimes you brought
What?
up something interesting a minute ago.
Handcuffs?
No,
Who?
you brought up something interesting a minute ago about the Patriot Act, and I just wanted to tell you that this was brought to my attention earlier, even though this Craig McCarthy at the New York Post found out about this 4 years ago, how the NYPD obtains people's personal data with no oversight. This is basically the NYPD is using Valerie Caproni's national security letters, and I didn't even know that. So we've got the FBI intermingling their tactics with the NYPD intermingling with FBI. We've got a surveillance state.
There is no Fourth Amendment. Yeah,
there's no Fourth Amendment. Listen, what we got to do is we're going to head over to the sponsor exclusive segment and continue this in-depth conversation. We've got Ryan sticking around with us. We're going to talk about the snipers. We're going to go into how, these guys are trying to kill Trump, and he's about to become the next president. So there's a lot to discuss. Stay with us, everybody.
I'm going to bring some alpha for you guys too. I got some intel that I don't know if you guys knew about, a special task force specifically on child trafficking that Trump was appointing a special person to in September of 2020, right before he lost the election. So we can talk about that too. It'll blow your mind.
Lots of great stuff. So stay with us, everybody. We'll be right back.